Hello, my name's Gavin and this is Genre Books and it's Tag Tuesday, and today is the Nightclub Tag. This is a tag created by BellTube and I was kindly tagged by Pat at Book Chat with Pat, who can always be found at the BookTube bar, novel in one hand, Harvey Wallbanger in the other. There are 12 prompts, so let's get going. Prompt number 1, Cocktail Hour. Name a book that you think fits perfectly with your favourite drink. Now, it's not my favourite drink of all time, but if we're talking cocktails, let's have a Long Island iced tea. And I think a perfect pairing with that would be something set in around Long Island, so I'm going to go with The Great Gatsby. Prompt number 2, Neon Lights. Name a book with a cover that immediately grabbed your attention, like the bright lights in a nightclub. Now, this is a sneak preview of a book haul video I've got coming up on Thursday, but I picked this book up last week and I think it is the most disco cover of any book I've got in my collection, and this is Harry Harrison's Star Smashers of the Galaxy Rangers. That, you'll be unsurprised to know, is a printing from the mid-70s. It's a parody of space opera, supposed to be funny. I'll let you know once I've read it. Prompt number 3, The Bouncer. What book did you have to put down because it wasn't letting you in? I haven't got very far into Vanished Kingdoms by Norman Davies, and I'm at the second attempt of trying to read this book. The subject fascinates me. This is about kingdoms that have literally dropped off the map, but it's so dry. Prompt number 4, DJ's Choice. What book would you recommend as a perfect read for someone new to the fantasy genre? It's probably a bit of an older book now, and if it was modern fantasy you were trying to get someone interested in, you would probably pick Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson, for example, which is perfectly fine. It's good knockabout fun. It's got fairly coherent and comprehensive magic system. It lives within its own rules and when it needs to creates a couple more. But for the older style fantasy and for something which I think has all of the hallmarks of high and epic fantasy, I don't think you can go far wrong with Pawn of Prophecy by David Eddings. And I chose it because that's the book that introduced me to fantasy, and it's the beginning of a series, and nothing pulls you in to read fantasy like knowing that there's another 4 books to come, and then another series of 5 books after that should you want to persevere. Prompt number 5, Disco Ball. Name a book that made you feel you were part of a vibrant, glittery world. I want to go for war with this choice, and there are a number of different war. This is Evelyn Waugh. A number of his books I could go for, but I think for taking an absolute snapshot of that bright young thing time is Vile Bodies. Prompt number 6, Dance Floor Diva. What book had you dancing with excitement from first page to last? Absolute page turner, and one that is just so enjoyable, is What Mad Universe by Frederick Brown. I know I've talked about this book before. It remains one of the best books I've read in the last couple of years. I think it's because I'm starting to, this journey of reading lots of pulp literature. This really is one of the first works I've seen that took a lot of the elements of that pulp science fiction literature and incorporated it not only as mainstays of the narrative itself, but also of, being fairly self-referential and playful with it. I think it's a book quite ahead of its time, and it's one that keeps you wanting to turn that page. Guest list. Prompt number 7. What author would you invite to a book party or book themed party, and why? I struggle with these kinds of questions because there are people you admire, there are people whose works you like, and you would not want them anywhere near your party. I love Hemingway. Not a chance I'm inviting Hemingway. I love Kerouac. Not a chance he's coming. Can you imagine taking Lord Byron to a party? No, this can't happen. We have to be much more sensible about this and think about who would appreciate going to a book themed event. So I'm going to choose Jorge Luis Borges. I think he's an author that probably loves books more than any other writer that I can think of. So much of his writing is about books. He is someone who loves that esoteric and unknown text. And I have to admit, I don't know what he's like in a party situation, but I think we have to take a chance. Prompt number 8, VIP entrance. Which book did you feel privileged to read before it became widely popular? I think it was maybe the year after publication. So I was about 14, 15 years old when, on a transatlantic flight in the airport before leaving, picked up a book. And it was fairly new. I think it was fairly new out in paperback because there was a big stand there. And 2 authors who at the time I hadn't heard of. But it looked like it would be a fun book. And it looked like it was a parody of The Omen, which I had seen not too long before. I started reading the book as we were taxiing onto the runway. And I think by the time we touched down in New York, I had finished the book. It was compulsive. And it was a while before I saw it mentioned other places. This is obviously a time before social media, but I must have been somewhat ahead of the curve because it was decades before anyone made a television series out of it. And it is Good Omens by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman. Prompt number 9, dance battle. Which 2 characters from different books would you like to see face off in a dance battle? I mean, this is a serious question, and I think I'm going to treat it with the gravitas and dignity that it deserves. So I'm going to say Edward Casaubon from Middlemarch and Salome from Oscar Wilde's Salome. Just to see the look on his face. Prompt number 10, midnight read. What's a book that you couldn't put down and ended up reading all night? It's been a while since I have stayed up all night reading a book. I've got work to go to. I've got a sleep cycle to maintain. But I did break that cycle not too long ago. On the 4th of July, I stayed up all night to watch the election results come in. So I didn't go to bed until 6:30 the following morning. I can't say that I read the book all the way through the evening, but I was dipping into it all the time through the night, in between bouts of watching the screens to get my latest endorphin rush from the schadenfreude of seeing another Tory lose his or her seat. The Skylark of Space by E. Doc Smith, which I was reading for part of Rocket Summer. Week 1 we were in at the time, anytime before 1940. And it's a great choice for that because it's quite easy to dip in and out of that book. It's not overly demanding and it's fun and pacey and exciting enough to keep you interested. Although the coffee and then the alcohol later in the evening did help. Prompt number 11, After Party. What book left you with a hangover, unable to start a new read immediately after finishing it? So, way to go to Harsh My Mellow there. I think probably the last time this happened was On the Beach by Neville Shute. The ending to that book is predictable but devastating. I finished it during the day, and it is usually, if I finished it during the day, my habit to pick a book up almost straight away and start reading another. It didn't happen on this occasion. Prompt number 12, Late Night Conversation. Which book left you thinking deeply or wanting to discuss it with others late into the night? I'd want to discuss a book that doesn't get a lot of discussion, and I would pick Alberto Angelo by B.S. Johnson. It's a great book. It's a mix between that sort of kitchen sink realism of an angry young man writer and the absolute flights of fantasy of a surrealist intellect. Visually, the book is innovative and striking. Narratively, it really does carry you along, and I find it odd how little he is spoken of these days. Prompt number 13, Tag Others. You'll see the guest list down below the line. I want to thank BellTube for creating this tag. I want to thank Pat from Book Chat with Pat for tagging me, and I want to thank you for putting up to get this far into the video if you've done so. I'll be back at some other point. Until then, bye.